Sophia Rivers had always known that Christmas could be lonely, but she had never expected that the year she turned 26 would feel like this. Static, empty, quiet in a way that made her chest ache. Her small apartment in Brooklyn looked like a paused life. A string of dollar store lights half working on the wall, a single mug of cocoa already gone cold, and a stack of unpaid bills she kept pretending were just another decoration. Her plan for the night was familiar and painfully simple. Watch an old holiday movie, try not to cry, and fall asleep early so the silence didn't have time to sink in. She wasn't expecting a knock at her door. Not on Christmas Eve, not when she hadn't spoken to anyone in 2 days. But the knock came again, firm, steady, almost elegant. When she opened the door, she didn't understand what she was seeing at first. A woman, tall, poised, breathtaking in a long, dark winter coat that looked more expensive than anything Sophia had ever touched, stood beneath the dim hallway light. Her eyes were a shade of blue that didn't feel real, sharp, and gentle at the same time. Her blonde hair was pulled loosely behind her, a few strands falling around her face in a way that made her seem both controlled and undone. "Are you Sophia Rivers?" the woman asked, her voice smooth, low, and warm like velvet catching light. Sophia nodded because she couldn't find her voice. "My name is Elena Hart," the woman continued, stepping out of the shadows just enough for Sophia to see the soft hint of a smile on her lips. "I'm sorry to arrive without warning. I know you don't know me." "Clearly," Sophia whispered, unable to decide whether she should shut the door or stare at the woman forever. Elena glanced down as if weighing her next words carefully. "You don't have anyone to spend Christmas with," she said softly. Not as a question, but as something she somehow already knew. Sophia felt her throat close. "How do you?" "Because I don't either." The hallway seemed to exhale. Elena lifted her gaze again, and there was something vulnerable there. Something that didn't match her perfect coat or her billionaire quiet confidence. "I know this is strange," she said, "but I'm heading to a small private gathering at my family's winter lodge. They expect me to bring someone. It's complicated." Sophia blinked, her heart racing with confusion. "And you want me to go with you?" "Yes," Elena answered without hesitation. Then she stepped closer, close enough that Sophia could smell faint vanilla and winter air from her coat, and whispered almost like a secret meant only for her. "Come with me. Pretend you're my wife. Just for tonight." Sophia felt the sentence hit her like warmth after a long freeze. "Why me?" she breathed. Elena's smile softened. "Because you looked like someone who deserved not to spend Christmas alone." The words, impossibly gentle, wrapped around Sophia like a hand she didn't know she was waiting for. She shouldn't say yes. She didn't know this woman. She didn't understand any of it. But there was something about the way Elena looked at her. Not with pity, not with entitlement, but with an unexpected quiet sincerity. That made Sophia feel seen for the first time in months. And the truth was, loneliness had a way of making even a wild invitation feel like salvation. Sophia swallowed hard. "Give me 5 minutes to change." Elena's exhale of relief was almost imperceptible, but Sophia felt it. As she closed the door to get ready, her heart shook with something that wasn't fear. Not exactly. It was possibility. And possibility, she realized, was the first thing she had felt alive in a long time. Sophia had never changed clothes so quickly in her life. And yet her hands trembled the entire time, as if the smallest movement might shatter the surreal moment she had stepped into. She kept replaying Elena's voice in her mind. The softness, the gentleness, the quiet certainty. "Pretend you're my wife. Just for tonight." When she stepped back into the hallway with her coat zipped up and her cheap boots laced, she half expected Elena to be gone, as if her invitation had been nothing more than a dream stitched out of loneliness. But Elena was still there, waiting with her hands tucked into her coat pockets, watching Sophia with a small, almost relieved smile. "Ready?" Elena asked softly. "As I'll ever be," Sophia replied, trying to sound brave, even though her heart fluttered like wings behind her ribs. They walked to the elevator together, their steps careful, their silence strangely comfortable. Elena pressed the button for the lobby, and when the doors closed around them, it felt like the world had narrowed to just the two of them. "I want to be honest with you," Elena said quietly, eyes fixed forward. "My family isn't simple." Sophia let out a nervous laugh. "I figured that part out." Elena huffed a breath. That could have been amusement. "They're traditional, judgmental. Expect me to live my life according to their version of duty." The way she said duty made it sound like a chain, and showing up alone causes problems. Sophia asked gently. Elena nodded, finally turning toward her. "Last year, I came alone, and my father spent half the night introducing me to men I was supposed to consider for marriage, as if I were a contract he needed to sign." The elevator hummed around them. Sophia felt something tighten in her chest. Not jealousy. Not exactly, but something protective she didn't have a name for. "So you thought," Sophia said carefully, "bringing a fake wife would solve that?" "No," Elena said softly. "I thought bringing someone who deserves kindness would." The elevator doors opened, and Sophia found herself swallowing emotions she hadn't expected to feel for a woman she'd met 15 minutes ago. Outside, a sleek black car waited at the curb, the kind Sophia only saw in movies. The driver nodded respectfully as Elena opened the back door and gestured for her to enter first. The interior smelled like leather and winter pine, warm compared to the icy wind outside. As they pulled away from the curb, snow began falling slow, soft flakes hitting the windows like whispers. Sophia finally found the courage to ask the question that had been pulsing in her chest. "Why me?" Elena looked at her for a long moment. "Because you opened your door, looking like someone who needed a reason to believe tonight could be different." Sophia's breath caught. She wasn't used to anyone seeing her. Her loneliness lived in quiet corners, never loud, never obvious. But somehow Elena had found it instantly. She forced her gaze to the window, watching the lights blur into streaks of gold against the snow. The car sped through the city, heading north toward the mountains, and the silence between them grew warmer rather than distant. After several minutes, Sophia asked softly, "Will your family believe we're married?" Elena hesitated. "They'll question it. And you?" Sophia turned to look at her. "Can you pretend we're married?" For the first time, Elena's composure cracked just slightly. Her lips curved, not in amusement, but in something more vulnerable. "I don't think pretending will be the hard part." Sophia felt heat rise to her cheeks, unexpected and startling. She looked away too quickly, her pulse drumming. Elena watched her for a moment longer, as if wanting to say something else, but the words never came. Instead, she exhaled slowly. "I should warn you," she said, voice softer now. "There will be moments tonight when they'll expect closeness from us. Hands held. Small touches, maybe more." Sophia swallowed. "I can handle that." "Good," Elena whispered, but her tone wasn't confident. It was fragile, almost relieved. Snow thickened outside as the mountains drew close, white and shimmering under the moonlight. Sophia watched Elena's reflection in the window. Her elegance, her tension, the faint sadness she carried like a shadow too well hidden for most to notice. But Sophia noticed. And for the first time since she had agreed to go, she wondered if Elena was asking her to pretend. Or if Elena was the one pretending something much deeper wasn't happening inside her. When the car turned onto the long winding road toward the lodge, Sophia felt something shift between them. Something unspoken, something impossibly tender. Something that felt suspiciously like the beginning of a story neither of them had expected to write together. The car slowed as they approached the Hart family lodge, a sprawling timber estate tucked between snow-draped pines and glowing softly beneath strings of warm white lights. It looked like something pulled from an old Christmas postcard. Beautiful, serene, and impossibly intimidating. Sophia felt her breath catch as the driver stopped near the entrance, where a stone path cut through untouched snow. She could practically feel Elena tense beside her, her shoulders tightening the moment the house came into view. It was subtle, but Sophia noticed every shift now. Elena exhaled long and steady before turning toward her, One thing, she murmured. Whatever happens inside, stay close to me. Sophia nodded, her chest warming with something protective. I will. Elena's eyes softened, not with gratitude, but something deeper, fuller, something that made Sophia's pulse flicker. The driver opened the door and cold air rushed in. Sophia stepped out first, boots crunching into the snow, and Elena followed, her presence beside Sophia instantly grounding and intoxicating. The front door opened before they even reached it. A tall woman with streaks of silver in her dark hair stepped out, arms crossed, expression sharp as winter ice. Elena stiffened. "Mother," she said under her breath. Sophia barely heard it. Mrs. Hart's gaze darted from Elena to Sophia. Assessing, calculating, unimpressed. "You're late," she said, voice clipped. "We weren't expecting company." Elena's jaw tightened, but her hand moved instinctively, reaching for Sophia. Their fingers brushed, hesitant at first. Then Elena intertwined them deliberately. The touch was warm, stunning, and real. "This is my wife," Elena said calmly. Though Sophia could feel the slight tremor in the hand now holding hers, Mrs. Hart's eyes narrowed. "Your wife?" Elena lifted her chin. "Yes." A silence so sharp it could cut the air fell between them. Sophia kept her expression gentle but confident, squeezing Elena's hand in silent support. She didn't know this family, but she knew what it felt like to be judged at first sight. She wasn't about to let Elena face this alone. Finally, Mrs. Hart stepped aside. "Come in," she said flatly. "Your father is waiting." Inside, the lodge glowed with a scent of pine and cinnamon. A massive stone fireplace crackled in the center, and garlands draped along the wooden beams. It should have felt welcoming, but the air felt tight, like the walls themselves were watching. Elena hadn't released Sophia's hand. In fact, she held it more firmly now, as though afraid of losing her anchor. Sophia leaned slightly closer, her shoulder brushing Elena's in a gesture small enough to seem accidental, but deliberate enough to ground her. Elena's breath hitched, just barely, but Sophia felt it. "Elena." The low, booming voice came from the far end of the room. A man with iron gray hair and a stern posture stepped forward. Elena went rigid. "Father." He stopped in front of them, his presence heavy, his eyes sharp. Then his gaze shifted to Sophia. "So," he said slowly, "this is the wife you somehow neglected to mention." Elena's fingers tightened around Sophia's. Sophia forced a warm smile. "It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Hart." He didn't return the smile. "We will talk later," he said to Elena before turning away. Sophia felt Elena flinch beside her. When they were finally out of earshot, Sophia whispered, "Are you okay?" Elena gave a small nod that wasn't convincing. "This is why I didn't want to come alone." "I know," Sophia murmured, gently brushing her thumb over Elena's hand in a soothing motion. It was meant to be supportive, purely supportive. But Elena reacted as though the touch had sparked a fire low beneath her ribs. She looked at Sophia, really looked. And for a moment, the room around them faded. "Thank you," Elena whispered, her voice barely audible. "For being here, for doing this." "You don't have to thank me," Sophia said softly, her heart tightening. "You're not alone tonight." "I promise." Elena inhaled shakily, and something unspoken settled between them. Something warm and dangerously easy to fall into. Before Sophia could name it, a younger woman approached, her tone overly bright. "Elena," Mother said, "you arrived with the wife." Her eyes flicked to Sophia, curious, invasive, and a little sharp. "Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference." Sophia instinctively stepped closer, her arm brushing Elena's again in unconscious protectiveness. Elena's voice remained steady. "Yes, this is Sophia." The cousin's eyebrows climbed. "But you never mentioned." "We married quietly." Elena interrupted, her fingers curling around Sophia's as if drawing strength. Sophia played along effortlessly, sliding her thumb once more along Elena's hand. Elena inhaled sharply but didn't pull away. If anything, she leaned subtly into the touch. And in that moment, surrounded by expectations, judgment, and a house full of unspoken pressure, Sophia realized something with startling clarity. Pretending to be Elena's wife wasn't going to be the difficult part. Pretending not to feel something for her might be. Dinner at the Heart Lodge looked like something curated by a magazine. Crystal glasses catching the glow of candlelight, silverware arranged with military precision, garlands woven across the long wooden table. But the beauty of the room did nothing to soften the tension that hung over it like a storm cloud waiting to break. Sophia sat beside Elena, their chairs close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Almost. Elena kept her hand resting on her lap. But every few seconds, her fingers brushed against Sophia's, as if confirming she was still there, still real. Across the table, Elena's father studied them with a gaze that felt more like interrogation than family warmth. Elena's father studied them with a gaze that felt more like interrogation than family warmth. So he finally said, voice heavy, "Tell us about this marriage." Elena stiffened, but Sophia spoke first, her voice steady and warm. "We met earlier this year," she said smoothly, instinctively slipping into the rhythms of a truth that didn't exist yet felt strangely natural. And things grew slowly, not rushed, not impulsive, just right. Elena's father raised a brow. "And yet you married without telling anyone." Sophia felt Elena's breath hitch beside her. So she did what came naturally. She slid her hand beneath the table and found Elena's, intertwining their fingers. Elena's exhale was soft, shaky. "Some things don't need an audience." Sophia continued gently. "Sometimes you just know when you found your person." The room fell silent. Elena turned to look at her slowly, like she couldn't help it. The gratitude in her eyes was unmistakable, but so was the flicker of something warmer, deeper, something that made Sophia's heart stumble. Before Elena's father could respond, her mother cut in, voice sharp. "Knowing and rushing are not the same thing. Elena has responsibilities, expectations. She doesn't have the luxury of making impulsive emotional choices." Elena's fingers tightened painfully around Sophia's. Sophia felt something ignite. Protective, fierce, instinctive. "With respect, Mrs. Hart," she said softly. Elena didn't make an impulsive choice. She made a brave one. She chose happiness over fear. The words hit the room like a dropped crystal. Elena's mother stared at her as though she had spoken blasphemy. Elena's father's jaw clenched. But Elena was looking at Sophia as if the earth had shifted beneath her feet. "And what happiness exactly does Elena find with you?" her father demanded. Sophia opened her mouth, but it was Elena who spoke, her voice finally cutting through the tension. "Peace," she said quietly. The entire table stilled. "I find peace with her." Sophia wasn't sure she was breathing. Elena never broke eye contact with her parents. For once, she continued, "I'm not performing. I'm not being examined or measured. I'm just allowed to exist, and she gives me that." Sophia felt Elena's thumb brush her hand. Slow, gentle, intimate. Under the table, Elena's hand trembled, and Sophia responded instinctively, stroking her thumb along Elena's knuckles in an unspoken, "I'm here." Elena's cousin leaned forward, too curious for her own good. "So, Sophia," she said brightly, "what do you do?" Sophia froze for half a second. She hadn't prepared a lie, hadn't needed to yet, but she didn't have time to build a glamorous persona. "I work at a bookstore," she said simply. Elena's mother blinked in disbelief. "A bookstore?" "Yes." Sophia met her gaze without shrinking. "It's small, but I love it." The cousin laughed under her breath. "Elena, you married someone who stocks shelves." Elena turned her head so fast the room seemed to hold its breath. "Sophia," she said softly, "is worth more than anything you could imagine." The room fell silent again. Different now, charged electric. Sophia felt heat spread through her chest, her throat tight. She wasn't used to being defended. She wasn't used to being valued at all. Dinner continued with stilted conversation and thinly veiled judgment, but Elena never released her hand. Not once. And every time someone took a subtle jab, every time Sophia felt small under their scrutiny, Elena would brush her thumb along Sophia's hand, slow and reassuring, grounding her. When dessert was finally served, Elena leaned close, her lips near Sophia's ear, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you," she breathed. "You didn't have to defend me like that." Sophia turned her head slightly, their faces dangerously close. "Yes," she whispered back. "I did." Elena swallowed, her gaze flicking to Sophia's lips before she looked away too quickly. For the rest of dinner, Elena held her hand, not out of obligation, not for the sake of the lie, but because she wanted to, and Sophia knew it. When dinner finally ended, Elena rose from the table with a polite but strange smile, still holding Sophia's hand as though releasing it might shatter something fragile between them. "We'll go get settled," she murmured to the room without waiting for approval. Her father gave a curt nod. Her mother didn't acknowledge them at all. Sophia could almost feel the weight of the house lift the moment they stepped into the quiet hallway. Elena exhaled shakily, letting her shoulders drop in a way she never allowed at the table. "Come with me," she said softly, guiding Sophia down a long corridor lined with old photographs and dark wooden beams. The lodge was warm, but carried a certain coldness, an emotional chill tied to Elena's memories. They reached a small guest suite, tucked at the far end of the hall, away from the rest of the family. Elena closed the door behind them, then leaned back against it as though finally able to breathe. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "They're difficult." Sophia stepped closer. "Elena, you have nothing to apologize for." Elena let out a humorless laugh. "I brought you here without warning, threw you into the jaws of my family, and you defended me more fiercely than anyone ever has." Sophia felt something warm bloom in her chest. "You deserve to be defended." Elena looked up then, and the vulnerability in her eyes was something Sophia hadn't expected. Raw, unfiltered, almost painful. "Sophia," she began, her voice soft. "You don't know what it's like to walk into a room and already feel like you've disappointed everyone in it." Sophia's breath caught. She approached Elena slowly, aware of the delicate thread between them. "Maybe I don't," she said gently. "But I know what it's like to feel invisible, to feel like nothing you do is enough, like the world expects you to stay in your place." Elena blinked, startled by the honesty. "You feel that way?" "Most days," Sophia admitted. "But tonight, I didn't." Elena's expression softened as though Sophia had just revealed a secret the world had denied her. "Because of me?" she asked, almost afraid of the answer. Sophia shook her head. "No, not because of you. With you." Something shifted then, a quiet, trembling moment where both women stood close enough that their breaths brushed between them. Elena stepped forward slow and hesitant, as if crossing a line that had been drawn years before she ever met Sophia. "May I ask you something?" she whispered. "Anything?" Sophia breathed. "When you held my hand at dinner, was it only for the act?" Sophia didn't look away. No. Elena exhaled sharply, her composure cracking just enough for Sophia to see the loneliness beneath it. "I didn't think it was," she murmured. The silence between them deepened. Not empty, but full of unspoken truths. Elena turned and walked to the window, the lights of a snowy forest casting a soft glow around her. "My family doesn't accept that I love differently," she said quietly, each word deliberate. "They never have. They think it's a phase or rebellion or something I'll outgrow if they pressure me long enough." Sophia's heart clenched. "That's why you brought me." Elena shook her head slowly. "No, I brought you because I needed someone gentle. Someone who wouldn't use this against me." She turned back towards Sophia, her eyes shining with a vulnerability that felt almost sacred. "And when I saw you tonight alone in that apartment, you looked like someone who understood the kind of loneliness that never leaves." Sophia felt emotion rise in her throat. "I did," she whispered. Until now. Elena's breath faltered. She crossed the room, stopping just inches away, close enough for Sophia to feel the warmth radiating from her. "Sophia," she said, her voice trembling ever so slightly, "you don't have to pretend with me when we're alone. Not here. Not in this room." Sophia swallowed, her pulse thundering. "What do you want me to be?" Elena's gaze dropped to her lips for a fleeting second before returning to her eyes. "Yourself," she whispered, the word breaking softly between them. Sophia stepped closer, their bodies nearly touching. "Then you be yourself too," she said gently. Elena exhaled shakily, her control slipping. "I don't know if I remember how." Sophia reached up, fingertips brushing Elena's cheek in the softest touch. Barely bare, but enough to make Elena close her eyes. When Elena opened them again, she looked undone. Beautifully, honestly undone. "You make me feel things I've buried for a long time," she whispered. "And I don't know what that means." Sophia's thumb brushed her cheek slow and tender. "It means you're human." Elena swallowed hard, her breath trembling. For a split second, Sophia thought she might lean in. She thought Elena might kiss her, but then Elena's gaze flicked downward and she stepped back. Not far, but enough to keep the moment suspended in fragile balance. "Thank you," she murmured, voice thick, "for not letting me face tonight alone." Sophia's chest ached with something dangerously close to longing. "You never have to face anything alone tonight," she whispered. "I'm here." Elena looked at her. Really looked, and Sophia knew then that something inside Elena had cracked open and it would never close the same way again. Sophia woke to soft winter light filtering through the small guest room window, casting pale golden stripes across the blankets. For a moment she didn't remember where she was. Only the quiet warmth of the room, the faint crackle of a distant fireplace, and the lingering scent of pine. Then she heard footsteps outside the door, voices muffled by the walls, and everything returned at once. The dinner, the tension, Elena's trembling breath, the near confession that had hung between them like fragile glass. Sophia sat up slowly, trying to steady her heartbeat. She didn't know what today would bring, but she knew the emotional storm Elena had faced last night wasn't over. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Sophia," Elena's voice, cautious. Sophia stood and opened the door. Elena was already dressed, wrapped in a deep green sweater that softened her usually composed appearance. Her blonde hair was loosely pinned back, a few strands falling freely, and her blue eyes looked less guarded than the night before, still weary but touched with something vulnerable. "Good morning," she murmured. Sophia smiled. "Morning." Elena hesitated in the doorway, hands tucked into her sleeves, like she didn't know what to do with them. "I didn't want you to wake up alone." Something warm unfurled inside Sophia. "Thank you," she whispered. Elena stepped inside quietly, closing the door behind her. "They're already waiting downstairs," she said, her tone apologetic. "There will be more questions today. They won't stop just because they didn't get what they wanted last night." Sophia nodded. "Then we'll answer together." Elena drew in a breath, subtle but shaky. "I don't want you to feel like you're trapped in this." "If you regret coming, I don't," Sophia said before she could finish. Elena looked up quickly, startled. Sophia continued softly. "I came because you asked, and I stayed because I wanted to." Elena's expression crumpled just slightly, as though those words hit a place she kept heavily guarded. Without thinking, she reached out and touched Sophia's wrist. Soft, tentative, barely a brush of fingertips. It was the gentlest touch yet, and somehow the most intimate. They went downstairs together. The dining room was bright with morning sunlight, but the atmosphere was far from warm. Elena's father sat at the head of the table, her mother rigidly stirring her tea, and the cousin from last night watched them with thinly veiled interest. Conversation halted the moment Sophia and Elena entered. Elena's mother offered a tight smile that held no kindness. "You're finally awake," she said. "We thought you two might be busy." The implication hung in the air like frost. Sophia refused to let her show discomfort. Instead, she slid her hand softly into Elena's gentle, natural, not theatrical. Elena's shoulders lowered almost imperceptibly, as though the touch studied her. Elena's father cleared his throat. We were discussing the guest list for night. The annual Christmas gathering. Everyone will want to meet Elena's wife. Sophia felt Elena freeze. This had never been part of the plan. Elena's mother continued. You'll both attend, of course, and you'll be expected to appear married. Elena inhaled sharply, but Sophia squeezed her hand before she could respond. Of course we will, Sophia said calmly. Elena turned toward her, surprise flickering in her eyes. Sophia continued, addressing the family without a hint of fear. If your friends and extended family want to meet us, we'll greet them. If they ask questions, we'll answer them respectfully. Elena's father studied her with unexpected curiosity. You're very confident for someone in your position. Sophia met his gaze steadily. Loving someone requires confidence. Elena choked on her breath. Not dramatically, but enough for Sophia to feel the tremor through their joined hands. The room went still. Elena's mother stared at Sophia, unable to hide her shock. So you're saying, she said slowly, that you truly believe you're right for Elena? Sophia didn't flinch. I believe, she said softly, that your daughter deserves to be with someone who sees her. Elena's hands squeezed back, tight, emotional, dangerous. Breakfast continued with tension, but fewer jabs. Sophia's calm strength had shifted the dynamic, even if only slightly. When they finally stepped outside into the cold morning air, Elena released a breath that clouded in front of her like smoke. Sophia, she said quietly, why did you say that in there? That loving someone requires confidence. Sophia looked at her, noticing how the sunlight softened Elena's usually sharp features. Because it's true, Elena swallowed. But does that mean? Sophia stepped closer, their breaths mingling in the cold. But I see you, she finished gently. Yes, it does. Elena blinked, thrown off balance. I don't understand how you do this, she whispered. How you walk into a room full of people who doubt you and somehow make me feel brave. Sophia smiled softly. Maybe you were brave all along. A gust of wind blew snowflakes between them, swirling like small white sparks. Elena stared at Sophia with an expression she hadn't shown before. Soft awe, quiet yearning, and something that looked dangerously close to hope. And then, without warning, Elena reached out and brushed a snowflake from Sophia's hair. It was a small gesture, a simple gesture, but her fingertips lingered for just a fraction too long. You make this feel real, Elena whispered, voice trembling. Sophia's heart lifted and ached at the same time. Maybe, she said softly. It is. The afternoon drifted in slowly, carrying the hush of falling snow and the kind of quiet that made emotions feel louder. Elena had spent most of the day avoiding her family, moving through the lodge like a ghost, trying not to disturb anything. But whenever her gaze brushed Sophia's, something softened in her, as if Sophia were a lantern cutting through a lifetime of shadows. The Christmas gathering would begin in a few hours, and Elena finally knocked on the guest room door with a hesitance that Sophia had never seen in her before. Come in, Sophia called gently. Elena stepped inside, holding a small velvet box, her expression tighter than usual, a nervousness she tried and failed to hide. I brought something, she said, closing the door softly behind her. Sophia tilted her head. For me? Elena nodded. For tonight. She hesitated before offering the box. Sophia opened it carefully, expecting jewelry, perhaps something extravagant. But inside was a delicate silver bracelet. Simple, elegant, understated with a tiny engraving on the inside. Not a name, not initials, just one word. Here. Sophia's breath caught. Elena. Elena's voice trembled. It belonged to my grandmother. She wore it her whole life. She used to tell me, when you find someone who makes you feel here, not somewhere else, you'll understand why this matters. Sophia looked up stunned. Elena continued quietly. I never found anyone who made me feel that way. A beat, then another until now. Sophia's heart pulled so hard she almost stepped forward just to study herself. Elena, are you sure you want me to wear this? Yes, Elena whispered immediately. It's the only thing of hers I kept for myself. But tonight, I want you to have it. Sophia lifted the bracelet with careful fingers, feeling its cool weight, its history, its emotion. Would you help me put it on? Elena breathed out slowly, the kind of breath that meant she was barely holding herself together. She stepped behind Sophia, her fingers brushing Sophia's wrist as she clasped the bracelet. The touch was light, hesitant, trembling. But the moment her skin met Sophia's, something shifted. Soft and electric. Elena lingered, her fingertips grazing Sophia's pulse. Your heart is racing, she whispered before she could stop herself. Sophia swallowed. So, is yours? Elena froze, her breath catching. For a long charged moment, they stood close enough that Sophia felt Elena's warmth at her back, her breath touching the curve of her neck. Sophia, Elena whispered, her voice impossibly soft. I'm scared. Sophia turned slightly. Of what? Elena looked at her, then really looked, eyes bright with unshed emotion, armor stripped away. Of how it feels when you look at me, she said, voice cracking just enough to reveal everything she had tried to hide. Of how easy it is to forget we're pretending, of how I keep thinking about last night and this morning. And this Sophia's knees weakened, but she held steady. Elena, she whispered, stepping closer. You don't have to pretend anything with me. Elena laughed softly, a fragile, breathless sound. That's what scares me the most. Sophia reached up then, brushing a strand of hair behind Elena's ear. It was a small gesture, barely a touch, but Elena closed her eyes as if it were the first kind thing anyone had done for her in years. You're allowed to feel something, Sophia murmured. You're allowed to want something. Elena opened her eyes slowly, her gaze drifting to Sophia's lips before she forced it back up, fighting herself. If I want something, she whispered. I don't know what it means for us. Then we take it one moment at a time, Sophia said softly. Starting with this one. Elena's breath trembled at the words. She looked completely undone, yet more herself than ever. For one suspended second, she leaned in, almost touching, almost crossing that invisible line. But then a knock sounded abruptly on the door, shattering the moment like thin ice. Elena stepped back too quickly, her voice unsteady. They need us downstairs. It's time. Sophia nodded, though her chest ached from the interruption. Elena paused at the doorway, turning back with an expression full of hesitation and longing. Sophia? Yes, when we're downstairs, Elena whispered. If I reach for your hand, it's not for them. Sophia touched the bracelet gently, grounding herself. Then I'll hold it for you, she said. Elena's lips parted as if she wanted to say more, but she only nodded, her eyes softening in a way that made Sophia's heart ache. And together, they walked toward the gathering, closer, braver, and more fragilely connected than ever. The Heart Christmas gathering looked nothing like the warmth usually associated with the holiday. It was elegant, polished, suffocatingly formal. Guests dressed in tailored silhouettes, their conversations crisp and polite, a silent competition hidden beneath every smile. Soft orchestral music filled the room, echoing against the stone fireplace and carved wooden beams. Sophia walked beside Elena, feeling dozens of curious eyes follow them. Elena's posture was perfect, practiced, but Sophia saw the tension in her shoulders, the way she held her breath before stepping fully into the room. They're already watching, Elena murmured, barely moving her lips. Let them, Sophia whispered back, her voice steady, her hand hovering close without touching. Only if Elena reached for it, only if she chose it. Elena swallowed and nodded once, the slightest tremor running through her. The first guest approached, an older man with a tow-eyed smile. Elena and your wife. What a surprise. Elena stiffened, but Sophia smiled warmly. It's lovely to meet you, she said, her voice calm in a way that studied Elena almost instantly. More guests approached, each one curious, skeptical, intrusive. Sophia answered politely, confidently, while Elena remained close, her movements careful, her breath shallow. And then it happened. A woman, tall, elegant, clearly someone of family importance, leaned forward with a saccharine smile and said, "How unexpected for Elena to marry so suddenly. We all thought she'd end up with someone more fitting." Sophia felt the jab like ice. Elena's jaw tightened, her chest rising, falling, rising again too quickly. Without a word, without hesitation, Elena reached out and took Sophia's hand. Not with the careful, hesitant grip she had used before, but with intention, with need. Her fingers threaded through Sophia's, tightening firmly, grounding herself. The room blurred for a moment. Sophia squeezed back, warm, steady, present. Elena inhaled sharply as if Sophia's touch were oxygen. Sophia turned to the woman and smiled with a grace sharper than steel. "I assure you," she said gently. Elena chose exactly who she wanted. The woman faltered, taken aback, and moved away. Elena didn't release Sophia's hand. Not even when the crowd shifted. Not even when her father looked over with thinly veiled disapproval. She held on like it was the only thing keeping her anchored. They moved through the room together, a quiet force, an undeniable pair. Halfway through the evening, the music softened and Elena tugged Sophia gently toward a quieter corner near the tall windows, overlooking the snowy forest. "I'm sorry," Elena whispered, her voice fragile. "I didn't mean to grab your hand so suddenly." Sophia brushed her thumb along Elena's knuckles. "You don't have to apologize for wanting comfort." Elena looked up, her eyes shimmering with something close to emotion. "It wasn't comfort," she said. "It was something else." Sophia's heart gave a painful, hopeful thud. "Then what was it?" Elena opened her mouth, but before words came out, a relative approached, forcing them back into conversation. They endured the next half hour together, hand in hand, every brush of their fingers sending Sophia's heart spiraling. When the crowd finally thinned, Elena exhaled a long, shaky breath. "Sophia," she murmured, "I need a moment alone with you." She led Sophia upstairs, away from the noise, into a dim hallway lit by garlands and a single window overlooking the moonlit snow. They stopped in front of the window, breathless from the emotional current pulling between them. Earlier, Sophia said softly, "You said it wasn't comfort. Then what made you reach for me?" Elena stepped closer, a slow, deliberate movement that made the air between them hum. "Because," she whispered, "in that moment I needed someone who is mine." Sophia's breath caught. Elena continued, voice trembling, "Not in the sense of marriage. Not for show, but someone who wants to stand with me because they care. Because I mattered to them." Sophia's pulse thundered. "You do matter to me." Elena closed her eyes at the words, as if they broke something open inside her. When she looked at Sophia again, her expression was stripped bare. Fear, hope, longing woven together. "You make this feel real," she whispered, echoing her confession from earlier. "And I don't know how to stop feeling that." Sophia lifted Elena's hand gently, brushing her lips against the back of it. Soft, reverent, barely a kiss, but enough to make Elena gasp. "Then don't stop," Sophia murmured. Elena stared at her, chest rising and falling with quiet intensity. For a heartbeat, Sophia thought she might finally close the distance between them, might finally choose the truth instead of the pretense. But footsteps echoed at the far end of the hallway, breaking the spell. Elena stepped back slightly, her breath shaky. "Sophia," she whispered, "I'm trying so hard not to lose myself in you." Sophia's voice came out soft, steady, full of something she could no longer deny. "Then let me catch you." Elena's eyes widened, shaken, moved undone, and she didn't say no. By the time the last guest left the gathering, the snow outside had thickened into a quiet silver storm, coating the lodge in a soft glow. The halls slowly emptied, voices fading, laughter dissolving into silence. Sophia stayed close to Elena the entire time, not holding her hand anymore, not out of necessity, but simply walking beside her as though she were meant to be there. When they finally stepped into the dim upstairs hallway again, Elena paused, resting her hand lightly against the wall as if grounding herself. The flicker of garland lights cast soft patterns over her skin, and for a moment she looked like a woman standing on the edge of a truth. She wasn't sure she could speak. "Sophia," she whispered, not looking at her yet. "Tonight was harder than I expected." Sophia stepped closer, her voice gentle. "You handled it beautifully." Elena gave a quiet, humorless laugh. "I didn't handle it. I survived it." "There's a difference." Sophia's chest tightened. "You don't have to survive everything alone." Elena finally turned to face her, and the emotion in her eyes was raw, tired, wounded, honest in a way she rarely allowed herself to be. "You say that so easily," she murmured. "But you don't know what happens when I let someone close." Sophia waited, silent, patient. Elena took a shaky breath. "Years ago," she said softly, "before I learned to keep my guard up, I loved someone." Sophia's heart stilled. "She wasn't like you," Elena continued. "She didn't look at me and see someone worth choosing. She looked at me and saw a weakness, something she could use." A shadow passed over Elena's face. "When my family found out, they blamed her for corrupting me. She blamed me for not standing up to them. And in the end, she left. Not quietly, not gently. She told me I was unlovable unless I became someone easier, someone simpler." Sophia felt a burn in her throat. Anger, sorrow, tenderness so fierce it almost hurt. But Elena shook her head. "I learned then that feelings are dangerous. Loving someone means giving them the power to break you. And I promised myself I'd never let anyone that close again." She hesitated, her voice lowering almost to a whisper. "Until you," Sophia inhaled sharply. Elena stepped closer, her expression trembling between fear and longing. "I don't understand what's happening to me," she whispered. "Tonight, when you spoke for me, when you held my hand, I felt safe. And that terrifies me more than anything." Sophia's heart beat wildly. She reached out slowly, giving Elena time to pull away, but Elena didn't move. Sophia's fingertips brushed Elena's forearm, soft and careful. "Feeling safe shouldn't be terrifying," Sophia murmured. "Feeling alone should be." Elena closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the touch like it was something she'd been starved of. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I don't know how to let this be real without falling apart." Sophia stepped closer until their bodies were inches apart. "You don't have to know," she whispered back. "You just have to trust me, one moment at a time." Elena opened her eyes again, and Sophia had never seen her look at anyone the way she looked at her then, like Sophia was the first warm thing she touched after a lifetime of winter. She reached up, her hand trembling, and cupped the side of Sophia's jaw. It was not a confident touch. It was reverent, almost afraid. Sophia leaned into it instinctively, her breath hitching. Elena's thumb brushed her cheek, slow and tentative, and Sophia felt her heartbeat stutter, heavy and wanting. Elena leaned in closer, closer, until Sophia could feel her breath across her lips, warm and unsteady. The moment hovered between them like a held breath. Then at the last possible second, Elena's forehead touched Sophia's instead. Not her lips. Not yet. Just a soft press of skin to skin. Fragile and intimate and devastating. "I'm not ready," Elena whispered, her voice breaking with vulnerability. "I want to be, God. Sophia, I want to be, but I'm not ready to kiss you tonight." Sophia's hand moved to Elena's waist, gentle, reassuring. "Then don't," she whispered. "I'm not here to rush you. I'm here to stay." Elena inhaled sharply, as though those words were the first unconditional thing she'd ever been offered. She let her forehead rest against Sophia's for another long, shaking moment, their breaths moving together, slow and soft and heartbreakingly close. When she finally stepped back, her eyes were glassy with emotion. "Thank you," she whispered, "for being someone I don't have to be afraid of." Sophia's voice came out low, certain, full of quiet devotion. You never have to be afraid of me. And Elena believed her. The hallway outside their rooms had gone quiet, the last hints of the gathering fading into muffled echoes behind heavy wooden doors. Elena stood in front of Sophia, still breathless from the moment they'd shared. The almost kiss, the confession of fear, the gentle promise that Sophia wasn't going anywhere. The vulnerability on Elena's face had softened into something else now. Not fear, not tension, something closer to longing wrapped in hesitation. Do you want to come inside? Elena asked softly, her voice barely more than a breath. Sophia nodded and they slipped into Elena's guest room, closing the door behind them. It was dimly lit, only the glow of a small lamp and the silver blue light of snow filtering through the window. The quiet felt sacred, as if the whole world had paused to give them this moment. Elena crossed her arms instinctively, a protective posture she seemed unaware of. But Sophia noticed every detail. You said earlier, Sophia murmured, stepping closer, that you don't know how to let this be real without falling apart. Elena looked away, her jaw tightening. It's true. You don't have to fall apart to let someone in, Sophia said gently. You just have to let yourself be seen. Elena let out a slow breath, and Sophia sensed the battle inside her, the instinct to hide and the desire to be understood. Without speaking, Sophia sat on the edge of the bed and lightly patted the space beside her. Elena hesitated, but only for a moment. Then she walked over and sat next to Sophia, not touching, but close enough that Sophia could feel her warmth radiating through the quiet. Can I ask you something? Sophia murmured. Elena nodded. When was the last time you felt safe with someone? Elena stared at her hands. Never my family. And with the woman I once loved, her voice faltered. She made me feel like my love was something embarrassing, something to hide. Sophia's chest arched. Elena, she whispered. There is nothing embarrassing about loving deeply. Elena's throat moved as she swallowed. Then why did it always hurt? Sophia turned slightly, bringing her knee up on the bed so she could face Elena fully. Because you gave your heart to someone who didn't know how to hold it. Elena blinked, eyes shining. And you do. Sophia didn't flinch. Yes. Elena inhaled sharply, as if she'd been waiting her whole life to hear someone say that and never believed it would happen. She looked at Sophia with a quiet desperation, like she wanted to believe, but didn't know how. Lie down with me, she whispered. Not seductive. Not suggestive, a request for closeness, a request for comfort. Sophia nodded and they shifted together onto the bed, lying side by side on top of the blankets. The room felt smaller like this, the air warmer, their breath sinking in the stillness. Elena's hair spread across the pillow, soft and golden in the lamplight. Sophia turned her head, their faces inches apart. What are you afraid will happen if this becomes real? Sophia asked softly. Elena's voice cracked. That you'll see all the broken pieces and change your mind. Sophia swallowed hard, her eyes stinging. Elena, broken pieces don't make you unlovable. They make you human. Elena closed her eyes, a single tear slipping free before she could catch it. Sophia reached up gently, brushing it away with her thumb. A slow, tender touch that Elena leaned into instinctively. Look at me, Sophia whispered. Elena opened her eyes. I don't want the perfect parts of you, Sophia murmured. I want the real ones. The ones you keep hidden. The ones you think no one could ever love. Elena's breath trembled, her lips parting in a soundless inhale. Why? But the question wasn't skeptical. It was hopeful and terrified. Because those are the parts that make you who you are, Sophia said. And I already care about them. Elena's breath caught in her throat. She reached up slowly as if moving underwater and placed her hand over Sophia's heart. It beats so fast, she whispered. Sophia smiled softly. That's her fault. Elena let out a small sound. Half laugh, half gasp, and scooted closer until their foreheads touched again. But this time Elena didn't pull away. She stayed. She let herself stay. Sophia, she whispered, voice barely audible. I don't know how to fall in love without fear. Then fall slowly, Sophia whispered back. Fall in small pieces. I'll catch every single one. Elena exhaled shakily, her fingers curling slightly against Sophia's chest. I don't deserve that, she murmured. You do, Sophia said fiercely. You do. Elena's eyes fluttered closed, and she pressed closer, not kissing her. Not yet, but resting in her arms, allowing Sophia to hold her the way no one ever had. And for the first time in her life, Elena Hart allowed herself to feel safe. Truly deeply safe. Wrapped in someone's warmth who didn't want anything from her except the chance to care. Sophia held her gently, her nose brushing Elena's hair, her voice a soft hum in the quiet. You're not alone anymore. Elena trembled once, just once. As the weight of those words sank in and she didn't argue. Morning arrived softly, slipping through the curtains in pale bands of gold. Sophia woke slowly, her body warm, comfortable, anchored by a presence she could feel even before her eyes opened. For a moment, she simply breathed, memorizing the quiet, the scent of snow in the air, the softness of the blanket. Then she realized Elena was still in her arms. Elena lay curled against her chest, her forehead resting over Sophia's collarbone, one hand loosely gripping the fabric of Sophia's shirt as though she had held on through the night. Her breathing was slow, steady, peaceful, far more peaceful than Sophia had ever seen her. Sophia didn't move. She didn't want to break whatever fragile magic had allowed Elena to stay so close. After a few minutes, Elena stirred, her lashes fluttering before her eyes opened. She blinked once, twice, awareness settling in. Instead of pulling away immediately, she remained still, her fingers tightening just slightly in Sophia's shirt. Good morning, Sophia whispered softly. Elena's voice came out low, rough from sleep. You stayed. Of course I did. Elena lifted her head slowly, her hair falling around her face in soft waves. She looked at Sophia with an expression mixed with surprise and something gentler, warmer. I thought maybe you would move away, she murmured, as if admitting something deeply personal. Why would I move away from you? Sophia asked. Elena swallowed, her eyes dropping to Sophia's lips before she quickly looked back up. Because I didn't mean to fall asleep like this. And I didn't mean to, she cut herself off, her cheeks flushing faintly. Hold on to you, she finished quietly. Sophia reached up and brushed a stray strand of hair behind Elena's ear. I didn't mind. Elena's breath trembled. For a moment, she just looked at Sophia, searching her face for something. Reassurance maybe, or courage. Sophia, she whispered. Last night, I let myself be weak with you. You let yourself be honest, Sophia corrected gently. There's nothing weak about that. Elena lowered her gaze, her fingers tracing absent circles on the blanket. I woke up and you were still here. No one has ever stayed after I've fallen apart. Sophia's heart clenched. Then let me be the first. Elena looked up again, emotion pooling in her eyes. You say that so easily because I mean it. Elena exhaled shakily and shifted to sit up. Sophia followed, sitting beside her on the bed. The morning light painted Elena's features in soft gold, making her look almost ethereal. But the vulnerability in her eyes grounded everything, made her real, human, achingly beautiful. I don't know where to put everything I'm feeling, Elena admitted quietly. It's like my heart is trying to run faster than my mind can catch it. Sophia's voice softened. Then we slow it down. We take it piece by piece. Elena nodded, though her expression remained troubled. Sophia, I don't want to hurt you. You won't. You don't know that. I trust you, Sophia said simply. Even when you don't trust yourself. Elena breathed out a shaky laugh, sad, grateful, overwhelmed. You're going to ruin me, she whispered. No, Sophia murmured, touching her hand lightly. I'm going to help you rebuild. Elena's fingers turned slowly, deliberately, until her palm met Sophia's. Their hands slid together, the contact light at first, then firmer. Elena looked down at their joined hands, as if seeing something she never thought she'd hold. "It feels different when you touch me," she whispered. "How?" "Like it means something." Her voice cracked on the last word. Sophia waited, letting Elena gather herself. Finally, Elena looked up, meeting her gaze with trembling sincerity. "Last night wasn't pretend anymore. Not for me." Sophia's breath caught. Elena continued, voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how to call this what it is. I don't know how to say what I'm feeling without being terrified." Sophia leaned in slightly, not touching, not urging, just offering closeness. "You don't have to name it yet," she said gently. "You don't have to say anything before you're ready." Elena's eyes flickered with relief and longing. "But you feel it too, don't you?" Sophia didn't hesitate. "Yes." Elena inhaled sharply, her hand tightening around Sophia's. She looked like someone standing at the edge of a cliff, not ready to jump, but finally believing there might be someone waiting to catch her. "Sophia," she whispered, her voice barely steady. "I think I'm starting to fall for you, and I don't know how to do this slowly." Sophia's chest arched with tenderness. She reached up, cupping Elena's cheek gently, her thumbs stroking once. "Then we'll fall carefully," she whispered. Together, Elena leaned into the touch, closing her eyes for a heartbeat as her breath shuddered. When she opened them again, they were luminous with emotion. She didn't kiss Sophia, but she lifted Sophia's hand and pressed a soft, reverent kiss to her knuckles. It was the first kiss between them. Not on the lips. Not yet. But it was real, honest, and full of everything Elena was too afraid to say out loud. Snow continued falling outside the lodge window, thick and silent, turning the world into a soft white blur. Christmas morning at the Hart estate looked peaceful, beautiful, even, but the tension inside the house hummed quietly beneath the surface, like a wire stretched too tight. Elena emerged from her room dressed in a cream sweater and dark wool coat, her hair loose around her shoulders. Sophia, waiting near the staircase, felt her breath catch at the sight. Elena paused when she saw her. Really paused, her eyes softening in a way that made heat bloom in Sophia's chest. "Good morning," Sophia whispered. Elena stepped closer, a small, shy smile curving her lips. "It is," she murmured, almost surprised by her own honesty. Before either could say more, Elena's father appeared at the end of the hall. "We're going for a walk through the property before Christmas lunch," he announced curtly. "Your wife should join us." Elena stiffened, but Sophia touched her elbow gently. "Let's go," she said softly, offering reassurance through the smallest touch. Outside, the cold air wrapped around them in crisp waves, snow crunching beneath their boots, as the family moved through the pine-lined trail behind the lodge. Elena walked beside Sophia, closer than necessary, her hand brushing Sophia's every few steps, accidentally at first, then intentionally. Sophia didn't take her hand. Not yet, letting Elena decide when she was ready. Midway down the trail, Elena's mother began asking pointed questions about their marriage. Each one framed like polite interest, but threaded with quiet accusation. "So, Sophia, you married Elena without meeting us?" "Yes," Sophia replied calmly. "Marriage is about two people, not an audience." Elena's father grunted disapprovingly. "And what exactly are you bringing to this relationship? Elena has status, responsibility, a future. You have, what was it?" "A bookstore." Elena inhaled sharply, but Sophia touched her arm gently before she could respond. Sophia met Mr. Hart's gaze with unwavering steadiness. "I bring love," she said softly. "I bring loyalty. I bring peace to your daughter. And I think those things matter more than any career title you could offer her." The words hung in the frozen air. Elena's steps faltered. Her breath hitched visibly, and she turned her face towards Sophia with an expression unlike anything Sophia had seen. Shock, tenderness, longing, and something dangerously close to awe. Without thinking, Elena reached for Sophia's hand. Not out of obligation, not from anxiety, but with deliberate intention. Her fingers slid between Sophia's in a slow, steady movement that felt reverent. Sophia squeezed back, warm against the cold. They walked like that for the rest of the trail, hand in hand, a quiet declaration in the open winter air. When the family eventually drifted ahead, leaving them momentarily alone, Elena stopped walking. The world around them was silent, just wind in the branches and snow settling softly at their feet. "Sophia," Elena said, her breath forming small clouds. "When you said you bring love, did you mean it?" Sophia slowly turned toward her. Their hands still joined. "Yes," she whispered every word. Elena's lashes fluttered, her expression raw. "I've never had anyone choose me like that, not without wanting something in return." Sophia stepped closer, their bodies nearly touching. "I don't want anything from you," she said softly. "Just you." Elena let out a trembling breath and looked down at their joined hands. "Walking like this feels natural," she murmured. "Too natural for something we're supposed to be pretending." Sophia smiled gently. "Maybe it's not pretending anymore." Elena lifted her eyes slowly, the vulnerability inside them glowing like embers. "I don't know how to do this," she confessed, voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how to let myself want you without being afraid." Sophia reached up with her free hand, brushing a snowflake from Elena's cheek. Elena closed her eyes briefly, leaning into the touch. "Then want me with fear," Sophia murmured. "Want me with caution? Want me slowly. I'm not going anywhere." Elena opened her eyes, and the emotion there made Sophia's heart lurch. "Sophia," she whispered, "I think I'm falling faster than I should." "Then fall," Sophia whispered back. "And I'll fall with you." Elena exhaled sharply, her hand tightening around Sophia's. For a moment, she looked like she might lean in, might finally close the distance between them in the quiet snowfall. But instead, she took Sophia's other hand, lifting both to her lips. She pressed a soft, lingering kiss to Sophia's knuckles, her breath warm against the cold morning air. "Tell me," Elena whispered against her skin, "that I'm not imagining this, that you feel it too." "I do," Sophia whispered. "Every bit of it." Elena stepped closer, their foreheads almost touching again. "Then don't let go," she murmured. Sophia squeezed her hands, firm, steady, certain. Never in the falling snow. Under the pale winter sun, Elena let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, love wasn't something meant to break her. When they returned to the lodge, the air inside felt different, warmer somehow, softer, as if the world outside had been cold enough to force their hearts closer together. The crackling fireplace in the main sitting room cast golden light across the wooden floor, the scent of pine and cinnamon drifting gently through the air. Elena lingered near the doorway for a moment, her fingers still wrapped around Sophia's, unwilling to let go even now that they were indoors. Sophia felt Elena's thumb brush her hand in a slow, almost absent-minded motion, like she was tracing something she was afraid to lose. "They'll be getting ready for lunch soon," Elena murmured, though her tone made it clear she wasn't thinking about lunch. Sophia stepped closer, her voice low. "We can stay here, just us." Elena met her gaze, and for a brief, vulnerable second, she looked like someone who desperately needed a place to rest. Without a word, she guided Sophia toward a small nook near the fireplace. Two armchairs angled toward each other, close enough that knees could touch if they wanted them to. Instead of choosing separate seats, Elena let go of Sophia's hand, only to sit on the rug in front of the fire. Knees drawn up slightly, she looked up at Sophia with quiet invitation. Sophia joined her on the rug, sitting close enough that their shoulders brushed. The flickering firelight danced over their faces, making every emotion visible. Elena stared into the flames for a long moment before speaking. "I used to sit like this when I was younger," she said softly. "When things got too heavy, when I needed to pretend the world outside these walls didn't exist." Sophia watched her profile, the melancholy etched into her expression. "Did anyone ever sit with you?" Elena shook her head. "No, it was always just me." Sophia's heart clenched. She shifted closer, letting her thigh gently touch Elena's. "You're not alone now." Elena's breath trembled, and she turned her head slowly towards Sophia. "I know," she whispered, her voice thin with emotion. and that's what terrifies me. Sophia reached out carefully, her fingers brushing Elena's forearm before settling there with the lightest pressure. Elena didn't move away. Instead, she leaned into the touch like someone finally letting themselves breathe. I don't know how to let someone love me, Elena whispered. Sophia felt her heartbeat quicken, but she didn't rush her response. You don't have to know how, she said softly. You just have to let yourself feel. Elena let out a shaky laugh, eyes glassy. If I let myself feel everything I'm feeling right now, I won't be able to hide it anymore. Maybe you're not supposed to hide it, Sophia murmured. The fire popped softly, filling the silence that followed. Elena's eyes drifted to Sophia's lips before she caught herself, looking away too quickly. Last night, she whispered, and today, every time I look at you, something in me aches. Sophia inhaled sharply. Aches like wanting? The word fell between them like confession Elena had been holding in for years. Slowly, almost painfully slow, Elena lifted her hand and rested it on Sophia's knee. Her fingers curled gently, testing, searching. Sophia's breath hitched, but she didn't move away. Elena's gaze lifted to meet hers again, soft, frightened, yearning. Sophia, she whispered, I don't think this is pretend anymore. Not for me. Not even a little. Sophia placed her hand over Elena's, their fingers aligning in quiet understanding. It stopped being pretend for me a long time ago. Elena's lips parted, her breath unsteady. She shifted closer, closing what little distance remained between them until their foreheads touched. Not accidental this time. Not hesitant. Intentional. Elena breathed in, then out. Her breath trembling against Sophia's lips, though their mouths didn't touch. I want to kiss you, Elena whispered, the words barely a breath. Sophia's heartbeat stuttered. Then kiss me. Elena closed her eyes tight, her voice breaking. I'm scared I won't stop if I start. Sophia cuped Elena's cheek gently, her thumb brushing tenderly. You don't have to kiss me until you're ready. Elena leaned into the touch, her breath shaky and warm. But I'm ready for something, she whispered. And then she shifted forward just enough that her nose brushed Sophia's soft, slow, aching. She rested there, their breaths mingling, her hands sliding from Sophia's knee to her waist in a hesitant, intimate touch that made Sophia's pulse race. It wasn't a kiss. Not yet, but it was the closest thing to surrender Elena had given her. And God, it meant everything. Sophia closed her eyes, savoring the fragile closeness, the soft breaths, the warmth of Elena's touch. Elena, she whispered, whatever you're ready for, I'm here. Elena exhaled, trembling against her. Then stay close, she whispered. Please. Sophia wrapped an arm around her, pulling her gently into her embrace, and Elena let herself melt into it. Her head against Sophia's shoulder, her hand gripping softly at Sophia's waist. Not a kiss. Not yet, but more intimate than any kiss could have been. Elena wasn't pretending anymore, and neither was Sophia. Lunch at the Heart Lodge should have been peaceful. A table set with evergreen branches, roasted dishes warming the air, soft carols playing. But for Elena, the moment she stepped into the dining room, the safety she had carefully built with Sophia began to crack. Her mother's eyes landed on her first, sharp, slicing, disapproving as always. Elena, Mrs. Hart said, her tone cold. The words were not a request. Sophia felt Elena's hand tighten around hers before she let go slowly, reluctantly, as if separating from her took effort. I'll be right back, Elena murmured to Sophia, but her voice trembled. Sophia nodded gently. I'll be here. Elena followed her mother to a smaller sitting room, the door closing behind them. Sophia stayed in the dining room, pretending not to notice the way the family watched her like an outsider who didn't belong in their meticulously controlled world. But Sophia didn't flinch. She sat straighter. She waited. Minutes passed. Too many. Finally, through the faint crack under the door, Sophia heard raised voices. Elena's mother sharp cutting. Elena quieter, strained, trying to stay composed. And then Sophia heard something that made her blood run cold. "This wife of yours," Mrs. Hart said, spitting out the word, "is nothing but a distraction. You're losing yourself. You look weak. When have you ever been weak? When have you ever needed anyone?" Elena's voice broke. "I'm not weak. I'm tired," Mrs. Hart scoffed. "Love is for people without ambition." Sophia felt her chest tighten painfully. She rose from her seat, the room spinning slightly with the weight of what she knew Elena was hearing alone. Before she could stop herself, she walked toward the hallway, her footsteps soft but firm. She didn't barge in. She simply stood close enough to hear the next words clearly. "You don't love her," Mrs. Hart said sharply. "You barely know her." A long pause, a silence so heavy it pressed against the walls. Then Elena's voice came, soft, shaking, unguarded. "I know her enough to know she treats me better than anyone in this house ever has." Sophia pressed a hand to her chest, her breath catching. "That's not love," Mrs. Hart hissed. "It's weakness." "Then maybe," Elena whispered. "I'm finally ready to be weak." Sophia had heard enough. She stepped away, walking back to the dining room so Elena wouldn't know she'd listened, but her heart ached with every beat. A moment later, the door opened and Elena returned, eyes bright with unshed tears, hands clenched at her sides. She forced herself to sit, trying to hold her posture, but her facade was cracking. Sophia met her gaze across the table, soft, steady, offering comfort without a word. Elena's breath hitched and she looked away, her throat working as she swallowed hard. Lunch passed in silence. She barely ate. Her hands trembled when she reached for her water. And every few minutes, her gaze flicked to Sophia as if checking she was still there. When the meal ended, Sophia rose first and extended her hand gently. No words, no pressure, just an invitation. Elena hesitated only a second before taking it. She gripped Sophia's hand tightly as they walked upstairs, her steps uneven, her emotions unraveling. Once in the hallway, Elena stopped abruptly, her breath shaking. "Sophia, I can't." Her voice broke. Sophia cupped Elena's cheek instantly, guiding her gently toward the quiet sitting alcove at the end of the hall. It was empty, lit only by soft winter light from a nearby window. Elena's composure shattered as soon as they were alone. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to see me like this." Sophia shook her head, wiping the tears softly with her thumbs. "Elena, you don't ever have to hide from me." Elena gripped Sophia's wrists, her breath trembling. She said, "I'm weak for feeling anything. Weak for wanting you, weak for letting someone in." Sophia stepped closer until their foreheads almost touched. "Do you believe her?" Elena squeezed her eyes shut. "No," she whispered. "I believe you." Sophia breathed out softly, brushing her nose against Elena's in a barely there touch. "Then listen to me," she murmured. "You are not weak. Wanting someone isn't weakness. Trusting someone isn't weakness. You're strong because you still feel after everything they've done to you." Elena let out a soft, broken sound. Half sob, half exhale. "Sophia, I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid this will hurt." Sophia lifted Elena's face gently. "It will only hurt if you push me away." Elena's breath hitched. "I don't want to push you away." "Then don't," Sophia whispered. And something in Elena finally snapped. Not in a destructive way, but in a surrendering way, a letting go she'd fought her whole life. She grabbed Sophia's coat collar, pulling her closer, her breath shaking uncontrollably. "Sophia," she whispered, voice breaking. "I need you." Sophia's hand slid to Elena's waist, grounding her. "I'm here. Don't leave me." Elena whispered, her voice trembling like glass about to shatter. "Never," Sophia murmured. Elena trembled once more, then rested her forehead against Sophia's shoulder, her hands gripping her tightly. The moment was raw, visceral, intimate, a surrender of fear, a claiming of vulnerability. They stood like that for long seconds, wrapped in each other's breath and warmth, the world outside fading into nothing. Elena pulled back slowly, her eyes red, her lips parted as though stunned by her own emotions. She looked at Sophia's mouth, then into her eyes, then back again. This time she didn't pull away. "Sophia," she whispered, voice trembling with longing and fear and something deeper. "I think I'm ready." Sophia's breath faltered, her heart beat loud in her ears. "Ready for what?" Elena lifted a shaking hand, brushing Sophia's lips with her thumb for this. And Elena's heart leaned in, finally truly closing the last inch between them. Elena's fingers tightened around the collar of Sophia's coat as she leaned in, hesitation trembling through her body, but giving way finally fully to something stronger. Sophia could feel Elena's breath brush her lips, warm and unsteady. A silent plea wrapped in fear and want. The world around them seemed to fall away. The muffled sounds of the Hart family downstairs. The cold creeping through the old window frames. The weight of expectations pressing against Elena's shoulders. None of it mattered. Not in this small pocket of space where Elena chose her. Slowly, as if she were stepping into a truth she had waited her entire life to touch, Elena closed the last inch between them. Her lips met Sophia's soft at first, trembling with emotion rather than confidence. It wasn't a perfect kiss. It was vulnerable, searching, a confession held in trembling mouths. Sophia cuped Elena's face gently, her thumb brushing a tear that slipped free. Elena leaned deeper into the kiss, then no longer tentative but certain, as though something inside her had finally unlocked. The kiss grew warmer, severe, not rushed, but full of quiet urgency. Years of restraint finally letting go in one fragile, beautiful moment. When they finally pulled apart, Elena rested her forehead against Sophia's, both of them breathing softly into the shared space between them. Elena's eyes fluttered open, blue and bright and shimmering. "That," she whispered, voice barely steady, "felt like falling and landing at the same time." Sophia smiled softly, brushing the tip of her nose against Elena's. "Because you weren't falling alone," Elena's breath trembled. And she lifted a hand to trace Sophia's jaw, her touch reverent. "I never thought I'd find something like this," she murmured. "Someone like you!" Sophia kissed her temple gently. "You didn't find me," she whispered. "You opened your door and let me in." Elena laughed softly. A small, breathy sound, fragile, but real. "That night, when I stood in your hallway, I didn't know what I was asking for. I just knew I couldn't face the holiday alone." Sophia nodded. And now Elena looked at her for a long, quiet moment, her gaze warm and sure in a way Sophia had never seen before. "Now, I don't want to face anything without you." Sophia felt her heart swell painfully beautifully. She reached for Elena's hand, intertwining their fingers. "We can take it slow," Sophia murmured. "We don't have to define anything tonight." Elena shook her head gently, stepping close enough for their bodies to touch. "Sophia, I want this," she whispered. "I want you, and I'm tired of pretending I don't." Sophia exhaled softly. "I want you too." A silence settled between them, warm, full, alive. Then Elena tugged Sophia by the hand, leading her toward the window where snow drifted silently beyond the glass. The world outside looked peaceful, blanketed in white, untouched and full of possibility. "I used to think love was something meant for other people," Elena admitted quietly. "People who weren't broken, people who fit expectations." Sophia squeezed her hand. "You're not broken. You're becoming." Elena's eyes softened. "Then will you become with me?" Sophia felt tears burn behind her eyes. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming tenderness of being asked. Truly asked, to stay. "Yes," she whispered. "As slowly or as quickly as you need." Elena stepped closer, slipping her arms around Sophia's waist, holding her with a certainty she never thought she'd possess. "Stay with me tonight," Elena whispered. Not as a plea, but as an invitation to continue the quiet intimacy they had spent days building. "Not because you have to pretend, but because I want you near." Sophia wrapped her arms around her, resting her head against Elena's shoulder. "I'll stay," she murmured. "I'm not going anywhere." They stood like that for a while, wrapped in each other as the snow kept falling outside, a soft, silent blessing over the two women who had finally allowed themselves to feel. Later, as they lay together in the quiet refuge of Elena's room, fully clothed, fully present, holding each other as if holding safety itself, Elena touched the bracelet on Sophia's wrist. "My grandmother always said, 'You know you're home when your heart stops searching,'" she whispered. Sophia brushed a kiss to Elena's forehead. "Are you home?" Elena closed her eyes, tears gathering again. "I think I found it," she breathed. "And you?" Sophia held her tighter, letting Elena's head rest against her chest. And in the soft, warm dark of Christmas night, Elena Hart finally understood that love wasn't weakness. It was refuge, and Sophia Rivers, unexpected, gentle, steady Sophia was hers. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.